You might have already been told at some stage or another that consistency is key when it comes to Instagram. So I decided to test this theory, and earlier back in April this year, I started posting a reel each day onto Instagram, and I managed to keep this up for 6 months. So in today's video, we're going to go through some of the things that I learnt in the process of doing this and what actually happened to my Instagram account in the process of that 6 months posting daily. If you don't know who I am, my name is Kaylee June, and I started this channel a couple of years ago to talk about all things freelance, business, and creative wise. Now, I really love everything that comes under that umbrella of being a creative freelancer, and I felt that I needed a whole new channel to talk about it. I also do have another channel, which is my main channel, which I have been running for nearly 10 years now, and that is all about photography and Photoshop related tutorials. And I'm just going to mention as well, if you can hear thunder in the background today, there's a really big storm that's coming over my house, so unfortunately that may get in some of the audio, and I apologize in advance. I'll also apologize for the lighting today. It is slightly off because it's really dark outside, and unfortunately my situation at the moment, I wasn't able to get it any better today. But onto the video, we are going to be discussing what I learned over the 6 months of posting a reel daily to Instagram and whether you might want to consider doing that too. So before we actually really get started with this video today, I also want to note that all of the content I produced over the 6 months, every reel that I created, was all with phone created content. So all the photos and videos I took for those reels were all created with just using my iPhone, and then all of the reels I created in app. So I used the text in app, and any other elements were all with using the Instagram Reel Creator. So everything was done in my phone. I didn't use any external programs like Premiere Pro or using really great camera equipment or anything like that. This was all just a test to see how far I could push it with just using my phone. So the Instagram account I'm also going to be talking about today is my travel account. This is my secondary Instagram account where I post all of my travel content. I really love doing that side of content creation, and I wanted to experiment a lot more with it this year. So that's kind of where I've started. And unfortunately, I actually had this account for a lot longer than just the past year or so, but my other account did get hacked late last year. So unfortunately, that account had to be scrapped, and I had to start from scratch in around November last year. So I think one of the factors that you're probably most interested in with this whole experiment is how many followers did I gain? And we're actually going to go through that first. I don't necessarily think that's the most important thing that I've gained over this time frame, but I will say that it was quite a pleasant surprise really in the 6 months what I've kind of risen to and what my original starting point was. So back in late April of this year, I only roughly had about 200 followers, and I had been posting consistently to this Instagram basically since I started it back in November last year. I had posted quite a number of reels, but mainly I was doing a lot of photography posts because primarily that is what I like to do. I am a photographer, and that was what I was wanting to post, and I wasn't doing as many reels. And one of the whole reasons I started this experiment was because I really felt that I was missing out on what reels were providing creators, and unfortunately at the time, reels really did feel like king, and photos were kind of getting left to the wayside on Instagram. So I really wanted to experiment with that and see if that made a difference, because I had been posting pretty much daily for around 5 months or so already, and it wasn't really making that much of a difference over the course of about 5 to 6 months. So as I mentioned, back in late April, I had around 200 followers. They were all organic followers. Some of my friends and family were in that bunch as well, who had actually followed me from my last account too. But that was all organic in terms of what I had accrued over the 5 months of posting pretty consistently. Fast forward just over 6 months to early November, and I now have just over 1,000 followers on Instagram. So it is about a change of around 800 followers during that time frame. And that was my goal. My first goal was to get around 1,000 followers on Instagram. I felt like that was a good milestone. So I did achieve that in about 6 months' time. Now, some of you are probably disappointed in hearing that result, and maybe you thought that it would have been more during that time considering I had been posting daily. And in some ways, I guess you can look at it that way, but Instagram is notoriously difficult to grow an audience on these days, and there are more and more people joining the platform every day in your particular chosen field. It can be harder to stand out. So realistically for me, I felt very happy with the growth of around 800 followers during that 6 month time frame, and all of that was organic. I didn't pay for any of those followers. I didn't beg for followers or do follow for follow or anything like that. That was organic. So I'm also going to go through some of the other things that happened to my account during this time, and particularly after the first month or so, that was when I was really noticing the difference of posting a reel every day as opposed to posting a photo every day. And it was a crazy big difference because my engagement went up, my followers went up, and also just my general views and reach went up during that time, and quite significantly from where it was back in early April. However, as I went along during the 6-month period of time, I did realize that there were times where my followers did flatline and I really wasn't picking up as many as I was initially, and I wasn't really gaining that traction as much. And I really wondered whether this was down to a few different points, which it very well could have been. But one thing that I started to notice with what I was doing each day with posting these reels is I wasn't really engaging much on social media. I was kind of like posting all this content out and then kind of expecting everyone to come to me. And so I sort of thought to myself, okay, what can I be doing here to change this situation? Surely there's something that I can do to help this process move along even quicker, especially when I'm getting those flat lines of not picking up any followers for days, even kind of weeks. You'd even start to feel like you were going backwards a bit. And that's when I made the conscious decision to spend a little bit of time every day engaging with other accounts on Instagram. I'd often heard from other YouTube channels and other content creators that social media wants you to be social, and that makes perfect sense since that's exactly what it's designed to do. Especially when it comes to Instagram, they want you to be commenting on other people's work. They want you to be liking. They want you to be saving things. They want you to be using the platform like how everyone else is using the platform, not necessarily just posting your work and then kind of expecting everyone to come to you and you not make any sort of effort to engage on the platform. And there's a few things that come along with engagement that I'm actually going to talk about and why it's so important and why it really helped me along with picking up a little bit more traction with my followers as I went along. One thing that I really did realize with starting to consciously engage with other accounts that were very similar to my own. So my account is very much based around travel, but also hiking and particularly mountains. I mean, I just love traveling to areas with mountains. So I was kind of getting a bit of a theme going with my account there. And in terms of the people that I started to follow, they all had very similar accounts. So they were either hikers or they were travelers. Maybe they were Australia based, or maybe they were experts in some of the countries that I'd recently visited and was posting about. I wanted to find a little bit of common ground in the people that I was following. And one reason I did this is because I wanted my explore page, I wanted my reels page, my For You page to really reflect the people that inspired me or the people that were doing the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to see that kind of inspiration instead of seeing just unrelated things, which quite often happens on both TikTok and Instagram. Your For You page can really pick up things that you just don't want to see, but you end up watching anyway. So I really wanted to make sure that my feed was getting curated in the way that I wanted it to be, because that's also important, is knowing that your feed is showing what you want to see as well, and people that inspire you. And I started to notice that the more people I followed and engaged with, the more engagement I got back. Quite often I would follow someone whose account I really loved, and then a few minutes later I would get a notification from that same person following my account, which was really nice. And it was kind of a really great starting point for this little community that I feel that I've now built, and quite a lot of these other accounts have now built, where we actually comment on each other's work regularly because we're interested to see what the other person is up to. It actually becomes a really nice feeling, and having that little bit of a social aspect back in social media, not just content creating goals, is really, really nice. It actually makes you feel that it's not like it's work or that it's a chore so much, and you feel like you're really connecting with similar and like-minded people. But also the engagement factor in that sense is growing. People were commenting on my work, they were liking it, and I just felt that there was a lot more engagement going on. And as soon as I started to get that engagement picking up, things started to change even more. And even though an increase of 800 organic followers during that 6-month period of time was wonderful, I still think that the engagement and learning about that a little bit more and doing what I did in terms of following other accounts that were like-minded and similar to my own really made a huge difference there. And I would say that just posting alone didn't really help with my long-term growth. I felt that posting daily definitely helped get me a little bit more reach, and it helped me get that little bit more engagement, definitely a little bit more eyes on my work. But in terms of long-term growth with followers, I felt that just posting daily wasn't enough to make that happen. You had to kind of make some other changes along the way. So with a combination of engaging with other accounts, following trends, especially when it came to Reels, and then also creating content that was more shareable or savable, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in just a second. With that combination of all of those things, that's when I really started to see my follower count and my growth overall really take off. And another thing that did happen during this 6-month period of time of posting a reel daily to Instagram is that changes in the algorithm became a lot more noticeable to me as it went along. I guess when you're posting every day to Instagram and things start changing in terms of how quickly your content gets reach, or it gets views on it, or there's engagement, you can really notice those subtle differences that start to come along. And I'm going to do a video where I talk about this a little bit more in depth with some of the recent changes to the Instagram algorithm and what I've noticed with that. But definitely one thing that I did notice, even just within the last couple of months, is that my content that was getting saved more, which was a bit more either educational or helpful to people, was doing a lot better. It wasn't always just the aesthetic content anymore that was really doing it, and especially for my newer part of my audience who really started following me, I think, when I did a lot more helpful content. I also started to notice that the more saves my content had in particular, the better it was likely to do. And another change in the algorithm was that photos were becoming a little bit more popular again. So just kind of tweaking things again and doing a combination of doing posts and also reels was also enough to kind of help me keep going with my traction. But also something that I noticed when I didn't post as regularly in the last couple of weeks, ever since I finished that 6-month period of posting daily, and I've been posting still about 4 to 5 times a week, I actually found that some of my content was doing better again. So I'm not sure if that's because of other factors or because the algorithm has now changed and it doesn't require as much consistency or daily content necessarily, but that's one thing that I have noticed that's been a subtle difference in the last few months. So I really did find that overall engagement was such a key factor here, and it just really made Instagram not feel as pointless in a way. And in terms of my posting, it just didn't feel as pointless anymore. I had a little bit more of a goal mindset, or I had a little bit more motivation in terms of what I wanted to do with it. I had a bit more clarity overall. And in terms of viral reels during that time of the 6 months, I didn't really have any reels go viral. I would say there was one reel that I did get over 100,000 plays on, and I guess some people would call that viral, some people wouldn't. But there was one singular reel that got over 100,000 views, which definitely helped a little bit with my follower count in the last month. But in terms of other reels that did well, I only had a couple that ever got over 20,000 views in that whole 6-month period of time. And it just goes to show that you don't necessarily need a viral reel to get you followers or to get you any sort of growth. It can definitely help with that, but I do feel that it was good that I wasn't just getting viral reels, because I felt like a slower pace of growth was enough to help me build a little community and kind of like a group of accounts that really are similar to my own, as I mentioned before, and just help me develop my engagement a little bit more overall, because sometimes with viral reels, they can really get you gaining a lot of followers, but quite often after they've followed you once, they may drop off and it's a little bit more of a spontaneous, impulsive follow, maybe rather than something where you've shared important content or educational content and people have really liked or resonated what you've written or what you've shown in a reel. So I think there's different ways to grow on Instagram, but there's no right or wrong way, and it's not always going to be down to whether you have a viral reel or not. Another thing that actually happened during the 6-month period of time that I do want to mention, which was quite exciting for me, was that I got a brand collab, and this was only at around 800 followers. I actually got a brand collab with You & Shoes, which I was really excited about because I was just stoked to have any brand kind of look at my work on Instagram, my little Instagram account, and think that I was worthy of a collab at that point. So I was able to receive a couple of pairs of free shoes, which I ended up loving, and I was able to do a post in return, or a dedicated post, which I'm actually still working on at this point in time. It may be up by the time you see this video, I'm not sure. But I found that that was a really good, encouraging sign for me, knowing that I only had around 800 followers at that point. But I have been tracking my engagement, and so far so good, and I'm really going to keep focusing on that more so than the follow account all the time as well. So over the 6 months, as I mentioned, I really felt that I had to change tactics as I went along. It wasn't really just as simple as posting a reel per day. There was a lot more that went into it in the end, and I really thought that it would be just that simple to just post a reel per day, but I don't really think that it was that simple. I think that there was a lot more thought that went into it and a lot more trying things out, trial and error with the algorithm, as there's always going to be with Instagram. And I think I've kind of got the hang of what's going to do well on my account now and what's maybe not going to do as well, and really where I want to place a lot of my direction with my account overall. I think posting every day for 6 months is a really great challenge, and if you are someone who wants to grow your account a little bit more quickly or grow it in general, it might be a good challenge for you to try out as well. And it did eventually get me to my goal of 1,000 followers. But honestly, I think with the way that the algorithm is now, and due to time constraints and all of the times that I was so tired but still managed to get a reel up during that 6-month period, I really don't think you should stress if you took on a challenge like this and you missed a few days here and there, because overall, I found that now, since not doing a reel daily and ever since that's ended, I don't feel like there's been that much of a difference in my engagement or with my follow account, to be honest. I think things have been pretty similar as it was before when I was posting daily. So I'm still posting, like I said, about 4 to 5 times a week on average, but things are still going pretty well, and I will keep you guys all updated in future videos here on YouTube. So everyone, if you do have any questions about this little experiment that I did, definitely feel free to put your questions in the comments section below. I'd be happy to answer them. It was a really great experiment, I think, for me to do, to see how far I could push myself with daily content on Instagram. But now I think I'm ready to step back a little bit and just consider a little bit more what I'm putting onto Instagram and really tailor my work a little bit more now. I think I've had that initial growth phase, and now it's time to really develop, I guess, what I want my Instagram to be and have that little bit more direction with it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, make sure that you do, because I'll be posting a lot more videos like this one. And just a quick note before I end the video, I have partnered with Planoly this year, and if you are interested in having a little bit more ease of planning with your Instagram feed, I highly recommend Planoly as an Instagram planner for your reels, for all of your social media actually, because they do cover a lot of social media platforms. So if you do want a discount link for Planoly, or you're eager to check it out, definitely follow the link down in the description box below, and I have a code there as well for a discount. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.